These EV ownership tips are warnings to everyone. Thinking about switching to an electric vehicle? Get ready for a ride filled with headaches and hassles. From constant range anxiety to the tedious planning of charging stops, owning an EV isn't the sleek, eco-friendly dream it's made out to be. Instead, it's a complex, stress-inducing burden that turns every trip into a carefully calculated mission. Welcome to the future, where driving just got a lot more complicated. Here are a few tips you'd have to keep in mind when you own an EV. Tip number 1. Always keep an eye on your EV's range. Even with advancements in battery technology, the actual range of your electric vehicle can vary significantly based on driving style, load, and weather conditions. Despite the shiny promises of improved ranges, owning an EV still means you gotta be constantly vigilant about how far you can actually go. It's like having an extra job. No, really. You know, the kind where you have to constantly monitor every little thing to avoid a surprise that leaves you stranded. Consider driving style, for example. If you're the type who enjoys a bit of speed, expect your range to drop faster than you'd like. Got a heavy load? That'll cost you more precious miles. And let's not forget the weather. Bit too cold or bit too hot, and suddenly your range estimates start to look like wishful thinking. So the reality is that with EVs, you're often left doing mental gymnastics to figure out if you can make it to your destination without a recharge. It's almost like these cars are testing your ability to manage anxiety, turning every trip into a strategic mission. Fun times, right? In the end, owning an EV means embracing a lifestyle where planning and constant monitoring are just part of the deal. It's a bit like living in a high-tech, eco-friendly version of the past, where you never quite knew if you'd make it to the next town. So keep your eyes on that range and good luck with your electrifying adventure. Oh, and hope your nerves don't get fried in the process. Tip number 2. Be prepared for charging hassles. Let's drive into the wonderful world of EV charging. Sure, we've been told it's the future, but let's be honest, it's more like a scavenger hunt with a frustrating twist. Imagine needing a different app for every charging station, as if you're collecting badges in some tedious game. Each app with its own quirks and peculiarities, and if you're lucky, you might even find one that actually works without a hitch. And let's talk about charging times. Remember when filling up your petrol car took, 5 minutes tops? Well, welcome to the EV experience, where you can look forward to spending anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours watching your battery slowly sip up electricity. Hope you brought a good book. Maybe a picnic, because you're going to be there for a while. It's almost as if the convenience of a quick refueling is a distant memory, replaced by the modern joy of carefully planning your charging stops and hoping there's an available spot when you get there. You get to experience the thrill of wondering if you'd find a working charger or if you'll be stuck waiting your turn. Truly an adventure every time. So if you're considering an EV, get ready to juggle multiple apps and make peace with those lengthy charging sessions. It's all part of the charm of going green, because who doesn't love spending more time waiting around? Happy charging. Tip number 3. Strategize your stops. EV owners need to plan trips around charging breaks, which can be particularly impractical if you have kids or a tight schedule. Gone are the days of spontaneous road trips or quick detours. Instead, owning an EV means meticulously plotting out where and when you'll stop to charge, as if you're on a quest for hidden treasure. Imagine having to coordinate charging breaks around your kids' nap times, or making sure you have enough juice to get to that important meeting on time. Sounds fun, right? Now, instead of just hitting the road, you're spending precious time mapping out charging stations and hoping they're not all occupied when you arrive. And let's not forget the added challenge of tight schedules. If you're someone who likes to maximize every minute, having to factor in lengthy charging sessions can feel like a huge step backward. It's like living in a world where the clock is constantly ticking, and you're racing against time just to keep your battery from dying. So if you're thinking about going electric, get ready to become a master planner. Every trip becomes a carefully coordinated event, balancing the needs of your vehicle with your schedule and family dynamics. Because nothing says modern convenience like planning your life around charging stops. Tip number 4. Embrace regenerative braking. Regenerative braking sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? Conserving energy while you drive by harnessing the power of your braking. But here's the catch. To really make the most of it, you need to develop some very precise driving habits. It's almost like learning a new skill set, except this one involves a lot of trial and error and a hefty dose of patience. Picture this. You're driving along trying to time your braking just just right to maximize that energy recovery. It's like playing a video game where your goal is to brake at the perfect moment every single time. Miss that mark, and you're not quite as efficient as you could be. And who doesn't love the pressure of optimizing every little action while driving? For those who enjoy a relaxed, carefree driving experience, this might feel like overkill. Instead of just driving, you're now thinking about every stop and go, trying to master the art of regenerative braking. It adds a whole new layer of complexities to something that used to be incredibly simple. So while regenerative braking is a neat feature, it comes with the need for precision and constant attention to how you drive. It's almost as if your car is training you to be the perfect driver, one careful stop at a time. Tip 5. Brush up on your mental arithmetic. One of the hidden joys of owning an EV is the constant need to perform mental gymnastics to figure out if you'll actually make it to your destination. Forget the simple gas gauge of yesteryear, now you gotta engage in some good old-fashioned math every time you hit the road. Sounds delightful, right? Well, for me it is, but not everyone's that weird. Imagine setting off on a road trip and needing to calculate your range based on factors like driving speed, load, and even weather conditions. It's almost like solving a word problem from math class, but with higher stakes. No one wants to be stranded on the side of the road because they miscalculated their battery life. For those who thought driving was just about, well, driving, welcome to the new reality. Now, instead of enjoying the journey, you're constantly checking and rechecking your numbers. Hope you done the math right. It's like being back in school, but this time the grade is whether or not you reach your destination. So if you're considering getting an EV, well, get ready to become a master of mental arithmetic, because nothing says modern driving like having to constantly calculate and worry about your range. Tip number 6. Prepare for overall complexity. Life with an EV is far more complicated than with a regular car, making it seem more like a burden than an advancement. Owning an EV sounds like a great idea, until you dive into the everyday realities of it. The simplicity of hopping into a petrol car and driving wherever you want, whenever you want, gets replaced with a series of challenges and calculations that can make even the most routine trips feel like a burden. Let's start with the basics. Charging. Instead of a quick stop at a gas station, you're now dealing with multiple apps, long wait times, and the need to plan your trips around charging stations. You might think you're ready for a green revolution, but in reality, you're signing up for a part-time job as a charging station scout. Then there's the constant monitoring of your range. Unlike the carefree days of driving with simple fuel gauge, now you have to consider how fast you're going, how much weight you're carrying, and what the weather's like. All these factors turn a straightforward drive into a complex equation that requires your full attention. Regenerative braking might sound like a neat feature, but it demands precise driving habits to optimize efficiency. Instead of just driving, you're constantly thinking about how to maximize your braking to squeeze out every bit of energy. It's like being in a perpetual state of a driving test. On top of all of this, add in the mental arithmetic needed to calculate your real-world range, and you've got yourself a full-on academic exercise every time you set out. It's not just about getting from point A to point B anymore. It's making sure you've done the math correctly to ensure you get there without running out of juice. In the end, what's supposed to be an advancement feels more like a series of hurdles. The promise of a simpler, greener future turns into a daily challenge of planning, calculating, and hoping for the best. So if you're considering an EV, be ready for a life that's more complicated than ever, because nothing says progress like making everything more complicated. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this.